Hello, fellow Toastmasters and honored guests. Today I would like to talk to you about printing agendas and using agendas in your club meetings. Currently, there's a few ways to do this. You can either go to your Toastmasters Facebook or web page. For instance, I've gone here to my Phoenix Rising Toastmasters page. And then you go to your meetings and agenda. And then you can just print out your agenda here if you like once it's all filled out. Doing it this way is very quick, very easy. However, it doesn't look very nice. It kind of looks just like you see here. A bunch of, has the times, has this, has your pictures next to it, has blank space here. So if someone has a speech introduction that's really long and this isn't stretched down far enough, you're not going to get the entire thing. And it just becomes an issue. It just doesn't look good. So what our club did at some point, they went to the Toastmasters.org website and downloaded a basic template, which looks similar to this one right here. Yes, it has a lot of the information you need. It has your club name, has the date, has the breakdown for your times, so you can manage the time of the meeting. And also right here, it has your presidents and all your other Toastmaster officers. And this looks good. It's easy to use, very simple. However, I wanted to make it a little bit easier to use. Because on this one, you have to go through and you have to type in everybody's name every single time. And that just, to me, it seems like it takes a long time. And not everybody knows all the members' names yet, so it's kind of hard to remember who this person or that person may be. So what I've done with this similar format or layout, I went and created this one here, which I put everything that you saw a second ago into the header, as opposed to having it right here at the top of your meeting. And the reason I did that is so you'd have more room in this section of your layout to have more information. And I made it so the date is smart, or auto-fills basically, because when you open this up, it'll open up and it'll automatically put the date that the document was open in there. So if I open this up tomorrow, it'll say October 23rd. Now, when you do it this way, you will want to print this type of document out on the day of the meeting as opposed to the day before. If you have it set to where this prints or autofills with that day's date, you can always overwrite that and put the date in there that you want. It's up to you. But one thing I've done is I've gone to the actual document, and I made little drop-down boxes. And these little drop-down boxes have a list of every single one of our members in the club. And what I did is I created the first one here, copied it all the way down, and then I just changed the description right here to be timer or grammarian or all counter. And this makes it a little bit easier, because sometimes, like I said, you can't quite remember the person's name, but when you see it, it's like, aha, that's the person, or you don't remember how to spell it, and there it is, like, ah, perfect, there we go, we have it. Well, that's great, but now when you do this, you have to fill every single one of them, which is fine, makes things a little bit easier. But the only downside to this particular method is when you have a new member join, or you have a member leave the club, go to another club, or leave the state because of whatever reason, you have to go through and modify these every single time. So if I wanted to have a new member, I'd click on this, and I'd click on the developer tab, and then I'd go to properties, and I'd sign their name. I'd click on add and put their name in there. And then I had to find that person's name, usually at the very bottom of the list, and move it up to the right spot in the alphabet in alphabetical order. It takes a lot of time, but the advantage is all you have to do is you do it once, delete all these other ones out, and then recopy this particular field or this particular control drop down and paste it in all these other locations, and go back through and modify the description. It takes a little bit of time, but you can do it that way. And I wanted to figure out a way to make it easier for our members, a little bit quicker and things of that nature. So I looked into trying to put this into Excel. And by doing that, I created this document. It looks very similar to the other one. Has the same exact layout. Has your theme, has your time breakdowns, has your word of the day information, just like the other one had. The only difference is this one right here is actually, it's not really different, it's the same thing. Equals today. So whatever date that you open the document, that's the day it equals right here. And you can manually overwrite that in Excel, and it's easy. And one of the other things that I've done is, if you look down at the bottom, excuse me, look down at the bottom of my page, you will see that I have a bunch of tabs. I have my members, have the sign-in sheet for when people come to the meeting, they sign in. Have the assigned roles, which is all the roles being filled for the next 2 weeks, and that right there just kind of allows them to do next week and the week after they sign their name on that document when we print it out. And then I also have our agendas, the grammarian report, timer report, general evaluator, and I also have the meeting minutes. The very first thing I did after I created this, and before I did any of this information over here, was I went to the members tab and I signed all of the members in here. I put all the members that we have in our club right here. And if you get new members, you just kind of put them down through here. Then you just do sort and filter. Pardon me. Once you highlight that row or column, actually, you go to filter and it sorts it by alphabet, by first name in this case. And then you go to your assigned roles here, or I'm sorry, your agenda. All right. Now what I've done here is I've created another drop-down list that looks at that members tab. So for instance, the Toastmaster of the day. This tab, or this cell, looks at these members, the members tab right here. So it has every single person in there. Okay. And for instance, if we have somebody like, oh, I forgot to add new person 1, well, I come over here and I can actually add new person 1. And actually, there is a change that I need to make here because Selena is no longer a CL, she's a ALB. So we have new person 1, and let's do a new person. Whoops. New person 2. Alright, then I go back to my agenda. I can go over here, and a second ago you saw that when I scrolled down there wasn't new person 1, new person 2. Now they're in here. And Selena's information has been changed to ALB as well. So for the Toastmaster, let's just go ahead and make it Selena for the day. Now there's something I'd like for you to pay attention to. When I assign this timer, watch what happens to this timer slot right here. So let's go ahead and click this timer. Let's make that Alicia, and it changes down here. So now all I have to do is fill it out in one location as opposed to assign it here, assign it here. Let's go to the grammarian. Let's give this role to Brian Hayetsky. It changes down here as well. And let's change this role, the awe counter. Let's give that to Brian Mosley. And you see how it just changes in both locations. It makes things so much easier. And you don't have to worry about filling it in twice. It's just one shot and you're done. And then you also have your general evaluator. Let's go ahead and make that Sharice Norwood for the day. So her name is here and her name is now here as well. And these same fields also apply down here. So let's make our first speaker, let's make that Sabrina Hilton. She's our founder of the club. So let's make it her role today to speak, and let's say she's going to talk about why we joined Toastmasters. Why we joined Toastmasters. There we go. Let's make it a motivational speech. So it's speech number 10 from the CC manual. And the time, let's say she's probably gonna talk a little bit longer, so we're gonna put her at 7 to 9 minutes. Now, if I just do 7 to 9 like this, it's gonna give me the date of July 9th, and that's because I forgot to format it incorrectly. But the way to get around that, because it's the way it needs to be anyway, is 7-9 minutes, just like that. And it shows 7 to 9 minutes. Now, her evaluator for the speech, let's make that Chris Marshall. And see that his name changed right down here too. And for our second speaker, let's give that one to Jose. We're going to call this I'm not sure. Let's just do how I got where I'm at, or how I got into Toastmasters. Let's make this a speech number 1, icebreaker. Well, actually, it's supposed to be number 1. Yeah, CC manual. And if you want, you can put icebreaker in here. It's up to you. So we know exactly what the speech is about. And generally in our club we usually put our icebreakers up first, but this is just an example. And your time, he's going to do 4 to 6. And again, if I put 4 to 6, it's going to give me April 6th instead of 4 to 6 minutes. But when I type in the minutes, it gives me 4 to 6 minutes. And let's put his evaluator as, let's just make it myself right there. Now for the table topics master, you click on this, same thing, and you assign a person to it. Let's assign it to Cater Cheek. Now as you can see, everything right here is now filled out. The only thing you have left to do now is fill out your agenda or your theme, and the theme for today is agenda. Word of the day is Toastmaster. Definition is just definition. It can be whatever the definition of the word is, and the example is whatever you want the example to be for that sentence. So hit him with the high. Now, after you get all this stuff filled out, there's a couple other things you have left to fill out. One of which is your all counter form, or your all counter form, pardon me. So you click on that. As you notice, my all counter on the agenda was Brian Mosley. Now his name is here as well, and it shows the date of the meeting. And I have that set to equal just like the agenda to show the date of the meeting itself, or the day that's being printed, pardon me. And this is also one of those things you want to print the day of the meeting as opposed to the day before. But again, if you do have to do the day before, just make sure you manually change that and type in the physical date as opposed to letting it tell you what the date is. And then if you notice here, I have it set so the speaker's name already fills in. So our first speaker is Sabrina, our second speaker was Jose. If you scroll down a little bit, table topics is not filled out because we don't know who they are yet. And then evaluators are filled out. We have Chris Marshall and myself. And if you scroll down even further, we have our our Toastmaster of the day, she's in here, and then our table topics master, she's in there. So all that information fills out right there. So nobody has to do anything with the sheet except for print it out when you're ready. The next thing you do is you go to grammarian. All that information is again filled out right through here. You have your grammarian's name, the date, the speakers, evaluators, and even your other speakers, Toastmaster and table topics master. The one thing that I'm still working on is trying to figure out how to get the word of the day in here, because this is one big cell. It's a little bit difficult to get that in there, so I may have to rewrite a little bit of it and make sure that the day always lands in a blank cell somewhere, and then that way it can equal whatever it says in the agenda. The same thing with the definition. It can equal whatever the agenda says. That way you're not having to type it twice, and you're able to look at one sheet for everything you need as opposed to saying what you have to on here, then hold up this sheet and you read from here for the word of the day, the definition, and the sentence. Now we go over to the timer report. So our timer was Alicia. If you look back at the agenda, Alicia was our timer. So there's our timer report, and the date again does the same thing. Now the only slight difference here, besides it filling in the speakers, is that now it gives you the time that they requested for their speech. And the reason we've done this is so you don't have to do anything when you get into the meeting. You just bring your sheet with you or pick it up off the table and you walk in the door, go sit down, and you're ready to go. And the same thing with the evaluators. Their names automatically populate, so you don't have to do anything with that either. The only thing you have to fill out, obviously, is your table topic speakers. And then I'm still trying to work on these little areas here in the introduction part of it, the report, to automatically fill in the person, not the person's name so necessarily, but maybe the person's name and their time they requested, so it just kind of automatically does it for us. And then the general evaluator, same thing happens here. Sharice Norwood filled in, the date and the speakers filled in here, and their evaluators filled in here. The only thing I haven't done yet is I haven't put the table topics master and the Toastmaster and even myself, the president, in there for when we speak during the meetings, because you do want to get those people to kind of start listening from the beginning of your meeting, not after they give their functionary reports, because most of us understand what the functionaries are once we've been there a few times, so you can start doing your functions or your functionary reports at the very beginning, or not really report, but you can start counting your ahs and ums, ers, and tisks incomplete sentences and your general evaluation of those people as well. And then once you get this filled out, then you have one more probably real easy thing to do, and that's to get the assigned roles filled out. And this right here, what we'll do is we'll go to our web page here. We'll look at, for instance, we'll look at the 2nd. That's our next meeting. So I'll populate here. Then I'll fill in these names here. So we have Dave Dardinger for Toastmaster. Speaker 1 is Colin, and that's all we have right now. We have Jose and Selena down here. So what I would do is I would go over to my Excel sheet here, and then I would, that's actually the wrong one. I was in the, where'd it go? Apologize. This one. So I'd come over here and I'd put in Dave Dardinger, and I'd start putting in all the other people in here that are doing stuff. Colin Lynch, and then everybody else that's in here. And these right here, this is another one of those sheets you want to print out on the day of, because I have it set so this equals that day's date plus 7. So you'll look at that day's meeting plus 7 days, because this obviously is the following week, and this is the 2 weeks from that current meeting that you're about to print or you go to. So that's why I have it set up that way. So we'll do today's date plus 7 and today's date plus 14. So that way you don't really have to ever figure out, okay, now today's date is this. Today's date. No, pardon me. Today's date is the 22nd. So how many days is that? 7 days, and you have to figure that out. And then okay, our next meeting is 14 days. You have to figure that out. This does it for you automatically, just quick and easy. All right. Now, when you get ready to do your meeting or get ready to go to your meeting, now you need to print these out, correct? To print these out, you're going to want to either do one of two things. You're either going to print these out as an entire workbook, which is fine because you're going to need almost every one of these things except for the members and the meeting minutes. So the only two you don't need to print out right now, because again, this is just a reference for every single one of these other things to look at, except for the sign-up sheet. The sign-up sheet is the only thing that does not look at the members page because of the way I have this organized. This is one of those pages you'll have to fill in automatic. You have to fill in by hand every time if there's new members or people leave. So again, there's a couple different ways to do this. You can print it out as a workbook by going to, I usually just go to print preview, and then I can click on this and say active workbook or just active sheet, or entire workbook or active sheet. I like doing active sheet because then I can have each one printed individually. And usually what I do when I print them individually, I'll print them out, I'll save them into our Toastmaster folder here, and then I'll go to weekly meetings, and then I'll print it out for that day's meeting. I'll make a folder, and I'll print out their agenda, so I know that the all counter is Sharice Norwood. I'll know that the general evaluator was Selena. And I'll print those things out with their names in the end of it, and then have the PDF ready to go before I leave for the meeting. And I'll print out one of each of those. So I'll print out one PDF of all these things, and then I'll send them. I'll batch print the sign-in sheet, the assigned roles, the all counter, the grammarian, Toastmaster, table timer report, and general evaluator. I'll print all those things at one time to the printer because you only need one copy. Now the agenda, I'll print that last usually because I'll need about 20-25 copies of that to put on the tables in the meeting. And then after that, I will take these to the meeting, hand them out, and at the end of the meeting I then ask for everybody to give these back to me so I can scan them in, because what we do in our club is we scan these things in, and the reason we scan them in is so at the end of the meeting I can include these, or we can include these in our weekly wrap-up meetings. So here's our agenda. There was a slight change because we didn't actually have a timer assigned that day, so Dave Dardinger said he would do it, so we have a slight change. Not a problem. Then I have it set up so we have our sign-up sheet, our sign-in sheet, then our sign-up sheet for which roles people want to sign up for, and then I'll go to our web page here, and then I'll change those names in there. And then after that, we have any other things that are handed out, like our sign-up sheet for our open house that's coming up next week. And then now we have our grammarian report, or I'm sorry, our timer report. So if you look at the timer report, again, this was unassigned, so Dave had to put his name in there, which was fine, but he already had that date on there. and it already had the people that were speaking. Jose was speaking, I was speaking that day. We both requested 4 to 6, and I went well over by just over 3 minutes. But that's because I was explaining this whole process to the club. And then we filled in our table topics, and this stuff was already filled in. So he didn't have to do much of anything except for just write in a few names and just put in some numbers. The same thing with our grammarian, Colin Lynch. Same process. All counter was the same exact thing. And then the general evaluator is the same as well. And we print these, we scan these in, and we send them out with our weekly wrap-ups at the end of the day. Or maybe at the end of Friday, depending on when the wrap-up is ready to be sent. Now, if you're not the table topics, if you're not the Toastmaster for the day, you can ask one of the officers to send you this Excel file, and we send it to them, and then we ask them to send it back to us so we can keep this document in our weekly folder here. And the reason we do that is because then everything's filled out already, and then when our secretary is ready to do the meeting minutes, she or he can just go over the meeting minutes here, and then everything's already filled out for them. They don't have to do anything. It's just everything's there. It's ready to go. They just type in a few basic things and it's done. So for example, here is a more finished meeting minutes right here. So we have this information right here. Here's the overall speech, the overall review of what we had for Jose's speech, and here's the overall of what I talked about in my speech. And then we have the general evaluators information here. They have a spot for comments, which is this long cell, and then we have it set up so when the person speaks, you just kind of drag it down because it's wrapped and merged. So if you just start typing, it's going to continue out here, even if it's wrapped. It's just going to stay the same width like that. It won't automatically push down. So you have to actually drag it down like this to get that to work. So for instance, like this speech here, if I double click, you see it's just going to go one line. Well, he obviously had more to say than just that. So let me just drag it down like that. And that way everything looks nice and neat. It looks clean on one sheet. Make this one cell this one cell pretty large. That way it fills out the header, and then information starts below that. So when you hit print preview, this is what you're going to get. Pretty clean, pretty simple. Back. And I thought this would be the easiest way for our club to get these things done quicker. For one of a couple reasons, it saves time because you're only having to fill out information once. Another thing is when you have sign-in sheets, we usually print a whole bunch of them. Some clubs do, they print 20, 30 of them at a time. They keep them in a binder, keep them in some sort of a file folder, and tote them back and forth all the time. Same thing with the assigned roles. Same thing with this thing right here. These may always be blank, but this date may be blank, and this date may be blank, so it's always having to be filled out. And same thing with the all counter, the grammarian, timer report, general evaluator. All those are generally blank, and we always have a bunch of them on hand. Well, by doing it in this method, you only have to print out one at a time. You're only keeping one with you at a time. You're not keeping a whole bunch in stock. Now you may want to keep a few just in case someone doesn't print them out like they're supposed to, or have an issue with the printer. You can probably keep 5 at the most, but you don't have to keep 10 or 20 of them. The other issue is if you do have that many of say the sign-in sheet, and you have a new member join, well now you have to get rid of say 15 of them because that new member is not on these sheets, or this person left and they're on the old ones. You don't need them on there anymore. So that's the reason I started doing it this way. Now, one of the other things I am going to work on is try to get this information here in the sign-in sheet to look at the member sheet as well, and then just automatically fill that out for us. That way, we don't have to do anything. So it's always there every single time. Now, if you would like a copy of this document, this Excel file, please let me know in the comments below, and I will send you that information. Or if you have any questions about the document, please let me know. Thank you.